Rain hammered the windshield of Tom Brady's black Escalade as he drove down Route 1 just outside of Boston. It was the kind of night where the air felt thick with something unspoken, the sky brooding like it knew something he didn't. He wasn't supposed to be out here. He should have been at home with his kids wrapping up a FaceTime call, but something had pulled him onto the road. A feeling. A restlessness that hadn't left since retirement. His eyes caught a flicker on the shoulder. A lone figure in white, barely visible through the blur of rain and headlights. He slowed, then stopped. It was a nun. She stood ramrod straight, soaked to the bone, her hands clutching a brown leather bag. No umbrella, no phone. Just her and the storm. Tom rolled down the window. "Ma'am, you okay?" Her face was pale but calm. "Could I trouble you for a ride? I need to get to Boston." He hesitated. "You're a nun." "Yes," she replied. "I won't bite." Tom half laughed, then popped the door. She slid in silently, folding her wet hands in her lap. Her habit dripped onto the leather seats, but she didn't seem to notice. "I'm Tom," he said, starting to drive. "I know who you are," she said softly. "You used to be faster." He glanced over, startled. "Excuse me?" "You hesitated," she said. "When you saw me. You're slower than you were." He wasn't sure if she was talking about football or life. Maybe both. "You always talk like that?" he asked. "Only when necessary." They rode in silence for a few miles, the rain easing into mist. Tom kept sneaking glances at her. There was something odd, no off about her presence, not threatening, just loaded. "You were out there alone," he said finally, "at night, on this road. Why?" "I'm going to see someone," she said. "Someone dying." "You a nurse too?" "No, just someone who listens." He nodded, not really understanding. Then, "You know, it's not every day you pick up a nun on Route 1. She looked at him for the first time, really looked. Her eyes were clear, piercing, and yet you did. They passed a gas station. She didn't ask to stop. Tom gripped the wheel tighter. "You said I used to be faster. What did you mean?" She was quiet for a long time, then she said, "You used to chase things you believed in. Now you're running from the things you built." That hit harder than it should have. He took the next exit, less from direction and more instinct. The nun didn't object. "You're not gonna, preach to me, are you?" he asked, forcing a laugh. "I already did," she said. The silence that followed was thick with questions he didn't want to ask. They pulled into a small roadside diner, half lit, the neon sign buzzing. He wasn't even sure why he stopped. Maybe to breathe, maybe to think, maybe because part of him didn't want the drive to end. "You hungry?" he asked. "I could eat," she said, adjusting her soaked habit. As they walked inside, people turned, not at Tom, used to that, but at her. Like she didn't belong in the land of bottomless coffee and greasy hash browns, she didn't seem to care. Over pie and black coffee, Tom finally asked, "So who is it? The person you're going to see?" She looked at him with eyes that seemed to know far too much. "Someone who reminds me of you," he blinked. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You'll understand soon." If you want to know who she's really going to see and why Tom can't shake what she said, subscribe and drop a comment. This story's just getting started. Tom stirred his coffee for the third time, even though he hadn't added cream or sugar. Across from him, the nun took small methodical bites of her apple pie, her eyes scanning the diner like she was cataloguing the souls inside. "Do you always travel like this?" he asked, breaking the silence. She dabbed the corner of her mouth with a napkin. "Like what?" "No phone, no car, standing on the side of the road in a thunderstorm." She shrugged. "God provides?" Tom gave a short laugh, unsure if she was joking. "You're lucky I stopped." She looked at him evenly. "Are you sure it was luck?" He didn't answer. Outside, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. A trucker in the corner booth raised his eyebrows at them, maybe recognizing Tom, maybe wondering what he was doing with a nun. The waitress topped off their mugs without a word. "I can't figure you out," Tom finally said. "You show up on the side of the road like some parable, say things that sound like riddles, and then you tell me you're going to see someone like me." She nodded. You're not used to silence. What's that supposed to mean? You've lived a life filled with noise, crowds, cheers, interviews, but silence makes you uncomfortable. Because silence doesn't lie. Tom leaned back, arms crossed. He'd been interviewed by the best and the worst. None of them made him feel this exposed. Okay, he said, let's flip it. You tell me one true thing about you, and I'll tell you one about me. The nun set her fork down carefully. I wasn't always a nun. He raised an eyebrow. Go on. I was married, once. He died. Tom nodded slowly. I was married too, didn't end in death, just distance. She looked down at her hands. Sometimes distance is worse. The comment cut deeper than it should have. He changed the subject. So this person you're going to see, how do you know them? I met him in a hospital years ago, she said. He was barely clinging to life, angry at the world, blaming everyone but himself. And now, he's dying again. This time, he asked for me. Tom studied her face. No makeup, no jewelry, just skin weathered by time and something else. Sorrow, maybe. What made you choose this life? He asked quietly. She looked at him, her voice low. One day I realized I was carrying too much pain to keep living for myself, so I started living for others. There was a long pause. Tom felt something shift in his chest, a dull ache he hadn't let surface in years. You think that's noble, she said, but it's also selfish. How? Because it's still running, just in the other direction. They sat in silence as the last of the coffee cooled. Tom looked out the window. His reflection stared back at him, distorted by rain. He barely recognized the man in the glass. I can take you the rest of the way, he said finally. She nodded. You don't even know where I'm going. He stood. Doesn't matter. As they walked out of the diner, a gust of cold air hit them. Tom zipped up his jacket, then hesitated. What was his name? He asked. The guy in the hospital. She paused, then said, Michael. Her voice caught on the name. Tom opened the passenger door for her, then slid back into the driver's seat. Michael. The name stirred something distant in his memory. A teammate? A rival? A fan? He couldn't place it, but the feeling was there. Something unfinished. Something waiting. The road unfurled ahead of them like a ribbon of silence, the city lights of Boston beginning to smudge the horizon. Tom hadn't spoken in 10 minutes, not since she said the name Michael. The nun didn't seem to mind. She stared out the window, hands folded in her lap like they were in prayer. Finally, Tom broke the quiet. What's his last name? She turned toward him. Does it matter? Maybe. She studied him for a moment, then answered. Caro. Michael Caro. The name hit like a snap from a linebacker. Sharp, unexpected. Tom's fingers tightened around the wheel. I knew him, he said. I know. How? He showed me a picture. It was an old one. You were both barely 20, shoulder pads, mud. He said you were the only one who ever told him the truth. Tom's jaw clenched. That kid had more raw talent than anyone I'd ever seen, but he had a temper. Wouldn't listen. And what did you tell him? That talent isn't enough. The nun nodded. That stuck with him. Tom exhaled. The memories were jagged. College practices, late-night arguments in the locker room, one fist fight after a brutal loss. Michael had vanished halfway through junior year, and no one ever explained why. Drugs, maybe. Anger issues. Everyone just moved on. Except Tom. He'd carried a thread of guilt, thin and fraying, but still there. He was homeless when I met him, she said. Overdosed in the back of a church in South Boston. I was volunteering at the shelter. Tom's stomach twisted. Jesus. He cleaned up for a while, got a job, tried to make things right. But the body doesn't forget what we do to it. Liver's gone now. Cancer, too. He's fading. And he asked for you? Tom asked. She nodded. Said he didn't want to die alone. The highway curved, pulling them closer to the heart of the city. Tom flicked on the wipers, though the rain had nearly stopped. His chest felt tight. He talked about you a lot, she added. Said you were the only person who ever saw him. Tom kept his eyes on the road. "That's not true. I saw what I wanted to see. And then I left." "You were 20, she said gently. "You couldn't carry him." "No," Tom said, his voice low, "but I could have tried harder." They exited into Dorchester. The streets narrowed, brick buildings hugging the sidewalks, streetlights casting soft halos on the wet pavement. The nun gave simple directions, left, right, straight, until they pulled up to a small hospice facility tucked between a church and an auto shop. Tom parked, but didn't move. "He knows I'm coming?" She shook her head. "He doesn't know I've found you." Tom exhaled, gripping the steering wheel like it could anchor him. "I don't know what I'll say." "Then don't say anything. Just be there." The nun stepped out, her feet sinking into a shallow puddle. Tom followed, slower. Inside, the building smelled of antiseptic and rain. A nurse greeted them quietly, nodding at the nun like she'd been expected. "Room 207, second floor, end of the hall." Tom stood outside the door, heart pounding like it was fourth down with seconds left on the clock. The nun placed a hand on his shoulder. "He may not remember everything, but he'll know it's you." Tom nodded. Then he opened the door. The room was dim, lit only by a small lamp in the corner and the green pulse of a heart monitor. Michael Carrow lay in the bed, gaunt and pale, skin clinging to bones. His eyes were closed, lips parted slightly, chest rising and falling with mechanical rhythm. The nun entered quietly, moving to the bedside like a shadow. Tom stayed in the doorway. His feet felt glued to the floor. "You can come in," she whispered. He did, slowly. Every step made his pulse louder in his ears. It had been over 2 decades, but Michael still looked familiar. Beneath the scars of time and suffering, Tom saw the same sharp cheekbones, the same stubborn set of the jaw. Michael stirred, his eyes fluttering open. "Hey," the nun said softly. "Someone came to see you." It took a moment. Then Michael turned his head, his gaze landing on Tom, his brow furrowed. "Brady." The voice was a rasp, like wind through gravel. Tom managed a smile. "Hey, man." Michael tried to sit up, winced, then gave up. "You're real." "Yeah," Tom said, stepping closer. "I'm real." For a moment, neither said anything. The nun backed away, giving them space. "I thought I was dreaming," Michael murmured. "Not unless you dreamed of me getting soaked on Route 1, Tom said gently. Michael gave a weak chuckle that turned into a cough. "Still driving like a maniac? Only when there's someone worth picking up." Michael's eyes closed for a moment. "Didn't think I'd see you again." Tom pulled a chair closer, sat beside the bed. "I didn't either." Silence. Then Michael said, "I used to hate you." Tom nodded. "I know. You were everything I wanted to be. Calm, smart, coachable. I was just fire." "You had more talent than me," Tom said. "Talent doesn't matter if you torch everything around you." Tom looked down at his hands. "I should have done more back then." "No," Michael whispered. "You were the only one who told me the truth. You told me I'd burn out if I didn't change, and I didn't listen." The room was still, filled only with the soft beeping of the monitor. "I blamed you for a long time," Michael continued. "Said you abandoned me, but I abandoned myself." Tom felt his throat tighten. "I didn't come here for apologies." "Then why are you here?" "I'm not sure," Tom admitted. "Maybe because I never got to say goodbye." Michael nodded weakly. "Then say it." Tom took a breath, eyes stinging. "I missed you, man. I didn't know how much until now." Michael's eyes glistened. "Same." A long silence passed. The nun returned to the doorway, her presence quiet but grounding. "Do you regret it?" Tom asked suddenly. "What?" "Everything." Michael looked up at the ceiling. "No. Regret's just another way to run. I owned what I did. And now I get this. A peaceful bed, a familiar face. That's more than I ever thought I'd get." Tom reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder. It felt like the final pass in a long-forgotten game, one that never really ended. "Thank you," Michael whispered, "for coming." Tom nodded, fighting tears. The nun approached, placing a hand over theirs. He needs rest now. Tom stood slowly. Michael's eyes were already drifting closed. As they stepped back into the hallway, Tom exhaled deeply. That wasn't the ending I expected. No, she said, but it was the one he needed. Tom looked at her. And what about me? She smiled softly. That's for you to decide. The city was still asleep when they stepped out of the hospice. A pale haze hung in the sky, not quite dawn, but no longer night. Tom and the nun stood in silence for a while, the streetlights flickering above them like tired sentinels. Is he going to make it through the morning? Tom asked. She looked toward the window of Michael's room. Maybe, but not the week. Tom exhaled, watching his breath cloud in the cold air. I forgot how final some goodbyes can feel. They are, she said, but they're not empty. They got back in the car, the engine humming quietly as Tom pulled away from the curb. Neither spoke for a while. The city rolled by in soft golden smudges, abandoned bus stops, shuttered convenience stores, a jogger here and there chasing silence before the world woke up. I didn't think I'd feel this heavy, Tom said finally. You think you left football with bruises, she replied, but people leave each other with bigger ones. He nodded, fingers flexing on the steering wheel. What happens now? You just keep showing up for people who are dying. Sometimes, she said. Sometimes I just listen to the living. He glanced at her. That doesn't sound easy. It's not supposed to be. The highway opened up ahead of them, the traffic light and smooth. Tom felt a strange peace settling over him, like something inside had shifted just enough to breathe again. I kept trying to fill the silence, he admitted, with interviews, endorsements, training, even parenting, but it was still there. That gap. You thought it was failure, she said gently, but it was grief. That word hit harder than he expected. They pulled off near a rest stop. Tom parked and turned off the engine. The hum of silence filled the car. You could have told me who you were going to see from the start, he said. You wouldn't have come. He considered that, then nodded. You're probably right. She turned to him. You still have a long road ahead, but not the one you think. What do you mean? You spent years proving yourself. Now's the time to know yourself. Tom let that sit. Then he smiled faintly. That sounds like something out of a fortune cookie. It's not. Fortune cookies never mention grief. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Michael wrote something. He asked me to give it to you if you showed up. Tom opened it slowly, a few lines scrawled in shaky handwriting. You saw the fire in me when no one else did. I spent too long cursing the heat instead of learning from the burn, but I never forgot that someone believed in me. Thanks for showing up one last time. Mike. Tom stared at the paper, the weight of it heavier than it looked. He didn't speak. He couldn't. As the sun finally cracked the edge of the sky, the nun reached for the door handle. Where should I drop you? He asked. She smiled. Anywhere. I always find my way. She stepped out, the wind catching her habit as she walked toward a quiet street. Tom watched her for a long time before driving off. Some stories don't end with a score or a spotlight. Some end in quiet rooms, folded notes, and rides through the rain. If this story stayed with you, if it reminded you of someone you never said goodbye to, maybe it's time to reach out. And if you're still here, this next video was chosen just for you. You're going to love it.